All right, guys. Hello, hello, hello. It's Venia here from the Spiritual Lounge. And today is Saturday the 8th. Um, I'm alive. I've had what is called a super cold, driven by allergies, fall allergies, and I'm still not 100%. You'll probably hear it in my voice. And I'm going to continue to rest again after this, but I am getting better. I'm getting a little stronger, as you probably can tell. So, real quickly, tomorrow is the 9th. And as you recall, I told you that Mercury would be retrograde November the 9th until the very end of November. And basically, just a rerun of some of what's going to happen. You may find anything electronic, mechanical, breaking down on you. Um, Documents to be signed may have errors in them. Read them over very carefully. The one thing I do like about Mercury retrograde is it fixes things, okay? Yes, things will tend to break, but they were going to break eventually anyway. It just kind of makes it happen during that period of time. So if something is faulty or needs fixing, you're going to know about it during the Mercury retrograde. Also, if a document or a communique needs some work, um, anything publishing, anything you're writing, whatever, you're going to find the mistakes. You're going to find what needs to be fixed during that time, okay? So it's also a time when a lot of maybe stuff that hasn't been said between people will be said, okay? Especially because Mercury will retrograde in Sagittarius and also Scorpio. But while it's in the Sagittarius phase, there's going to be some blunt, um, angry communication, okay, between people. Stuff's just going to come out bluntly. Sagittarius do not mince their words. It's going to be fiery. It's going to be some anger with it. So just like look out for that kind of stuff. And remember, anger isn't always a bad thing, because there's feeling, passion behind it. It's stuff that needs to be said. People want to be said, and it's finally getting out. So if someone displays that to you, you might want to listen to what they're saying a little bit more keenly. Okay, but this is the type of interaction that we're going to see during this phase. Okay, um, and it's a good time to get things, off your chest, right? If you're the one that's coming out with it angrily. So, like I said, tomorrow it's in its full retrograde effect, and it'll be that way until the end of the month. So, just look out for those things. I personally would not, I'm not telling anyone what to do, so please don't ask me. Um, but I personally would not make travel reservations during this time. Things can just go awry, and if you have travel booked, just make sure you get there early enough, or just plan for stuff to be interrupted. All kind of issues may come up. It's Mercury is the planet of trickery, shenanigans, etc. So it throws a lot at you, and it's a great test of our patience. And you guys know I have none. So that being said, this has been a very interesting last couple of days. With the back and forth with the snap. This administration doesn't want to fund snap. And they're basically telling Americans, we don't want to give money towards that. We got other priorities, and they don't involve helping out the people. It's just plain and simply that. I'm not even making that up. JD Vance just came out flatly and said, we don't want our money to go there. Period. Don the Con did try to spin a little lie and say that, well, we don't really have all the money to fund SNAP. JD Vance just said, that's not where we want our money to go. And they're even taking it to the Supreme Court, the very latest in the Supreme Court decision, because remember, two judges said that SNAP benefits have to be fully funded through November. And these were two federal judges. And so the Trump administration took them to court, to the Supreme Court, and Ketanji was the deciding factor. I guess that she rules over that. And what she did was she put a stay on, she basically returned it back to the appeals court. Okay? And the appeals court, so that they can decide it even further. Now, remember, this appeals court, which was the second federal court that it went to, said that, yeah, you're gonna supply the monies for SNAP, and so she pushed it back to them and is gonna let them make the decision. But here's the funniest thing, okay? And something that a lot of people did not know. After the second, the appeals court made its ruling, the Department of DHS, which controls that funding, started sending out the monies to certain states, okay? Several of the blue states got full monies for the SNAP benefits. So they were able to fund SNAP for the month of November. And what those blue states did was they hurried up, processed the money through, allowing it to go out. Okay? Most of the red states did not get the money. Okay? So let's put that into context, okay? You've got the Republicans who are, lockstep, most of them are lockstep in with this administration, were not able to pull that funding, okay? So do you see a little divine trickery going on there behind the scenes? Do you understand what happened? Okay. So how do you think they're going to feel? And not only that, their constituents, right? They're going to be screaming and yelling at them because the funding was stopped by DHS after the Supreme Court made its ruling. So those red states, a lot of them are not getting that money right now until another ruling is made. You get it? Get that? Brilliant, isn't it? Like I always tell you guys, divine love has the very last word. Things are going to move the way the universe wants it to move and the way it's supposed to move, in a divine flow, okay? And not the way we plan. So I just thought Pennsylvania, by the way, was one of the states, blue state, that received all its funding. And Josh Shapiro, the second it came through, distributed those monies. I believe Illinois was another one, and there was several others. But anyway, so, yeah. And we all saw the famous picture of Don the Con in his office when that medical CEO passed out in the office. He was out of it. He didn't care. He was turned away from it. That photo is just iconic, right? It will go down in history books as this is the true face of him and this administration. They just don't care, and you cannot. There is no energy behind that, right? You cannot continue that type of um, actions, right? There has to be love in some form in every type of action for it to be continuing, for it to there to be a continuous flow, and there is none from this administration. It's just cruelty, and that's why I say these snapbacks um, are so important. And I told you the karmic, retribution period has begun for Republicans, and that I was given. Remember, I was given that weeks ago, and we're seeing it just kind of play out. Okay, the rubber band is snapped. They stretched it too far. But anyway, before I go into some of the big stuff that happened, I want to talk about this woman, Nikayla. Um, Nikaylie, I believe. She's been on TikTok. She's gotten millions and millions of views. She did a social experiment calling several churches in the South. Um, your evangelical churches that, are so pro life and this and that, right? And she's basically pretending like she has an infant, and uh, she ran out of money and she has no money to feed her infant. And all she's asking for is one can of formula, of milk for the baby, right? And the greater percentage of the churches were basically like, nope, ain't got it. Call this person, do that. But there were a few that did offer to help. One was a mosque, or I think two were a mosque. There were three black churches, predominantly black churches, Baptist, if I'm not mistaken, that offered help. But out of the 30 or more that she called, most of them were like, Psst, uh, good luck. Wish you the best. And she's so realistic with this. She's got this audio of a baby infant crying in the background. So if you're able to get on TikTok, go check her out. She's Nikaylie, and this is a beautiful demonstration of um, how love just kind of puts the truth out there and is giving us all a chance to see, um, you know, what's really going on, what are people's priorities, okay? Um, Forget a church. If someone had called me, okay, and all they were asking for was a freaking can of milk, I'd have pulled that shit right out my pocket. Like, yo, where do you need me to meet you? You got a Cash App. Can I Instacart it to you? Like, come on. And these people, and she wasn't even asking for money. Okay, she was not even asking for money. A can of milk. Okay, so her videos have gone viral. You got to check them out. It's just interesting to hear. But the most fascinating thing to me was thing. I said that twice. Why? The most fascinating thing was the fact that um, I had saw several people's reactions to her watching these videos, right? And one person, their church was one of the churches that she called, and this woman was like, and she was legit because she's talking about the actual the names of the people at the church. She knew everything about the church and how they just had this big fundraiser to renovate the church, and she's like, I will never go there again. And I'll make sure my family and friends don't go there again. And, they're just heartless and this and that. And, you know, so long story short, with that particular thing is don't forget number one, I just talked about religion in my previous video. Okay. And number two, um, the guise of greed and control and many other things comes sometimes in the form of religion. Okay, it is one way that other humans use to control other humans. Okay, and I personally, and I'm sure many of you do too, get disgusted when you see these videos of a pastor being flown in his personal helicopter onto the church grounds, um, and then leaving in his Rolls Royce and uh, those type of things. Like, really? Are you kidding me? I'm giving money for this? No, no, nope, 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 nope. No, there's no good reason why a person like that should be asking for anything from its members if it has so much wealth like that. I know you guys remember the famous mega church guy in the South. I won't even mention his names in case this video gets flagged, but during one of the major hurricanes, he actually had the church doors barricaded and wouldn't allow the church to be used as a shelter. Okay? One of the super biggest frauds there is. Okay? Um, there's no integrity behind stuff like that. And that's what pisses me off. I have no problem with anyone getting anything deservedly. I don't have any problem with people being on this rich scale, okay? But when there's no integrity behind it, that's what I have a problem with, right? And so this social experiment this girl Nikali did just puts all that out into the forefront, okay? For those that, are listening to every word of their pastor, okay? This shows their true intentions and actions at work. Okay. And a lot of people, fortunately, are going to be turned off or say, hey, wait a minute, something's not jiving here. All she's asking for is a can of milk. Hmm, you know, I don't know. So, had to share that with you guys. Okay, something else that's going on that I want you guys to take real notice of. Okay, Murdoch admitted publicly that he was called by Don the Con and threatened. Rupert Murdoch is in touch with a whistleblower from the Department of Justice, okay, that was fired because the guy would not lie, okay? And also, the guy had information on the files, all right? And basically said they're far worse than anyone could possibly imagine, okay? So Rupert Murdoch is basically sheltering this person and is releasing statements from this person. So Don the Con called Rupert Murdoch. Now remember, Rupert Murdoch is right-wing propaganda news. Okay, he is Fox News. All right. So, but he has kind of gone against Don the Con recently here in a few different ways. But anyway, um, Rupert Murdoch is not backing down. Okay, and so that should be a very interesting back and forth tug of war. Those files are going to get released. I've told you guys that several times. Um, and they won't be through the traditional way. I said that from the beginning. It won't be, you know, a normal way, but they're going to get released. Okay? And bits of them have already been coming out, leaked out. Okay? So, Mom Dami hired an all-female transition team, okay? Including E. Jean Carroll. This guy just gets better and better, honestly. And like I told you guys, I do believe that he's going to have a lot of success in implementing some of the things that he wants to do. And you already know, I saw him getting elected. I saw him two times election winning two back to back, and I see another one back to back. So I did have a slight concern over his safety, but it seems like it was okay. So maybe someone will attempt something, but it won't be successful, type of thing. Okay, let's get into some of these snapbacks because I've got a lot of them, and I'm already 21 minutes in. Oh gosh. Okay, this is extremely important. I am from Pennsylvania. Bucks County is one of those, kind of can go either way during the elections, and it has. Okay, they they are one of the key spots in the country that is looked at um, for election data, statistics, etc. Because they're not only a diverse group, but they're kind of like a harbinger of basically real society. Okay, so Bucks County is definitely one of the key spots they look at for election data. Anyway, Bucks County during this election flipped their entire school board blue. Okay, and they ousted their MAGA sheriff. Very important. Very important. And you can best believe that Republicans have this, um, you know, spotlighted on their uh, election statistic board. Okay? Uh, the Supreme Court does not seem to be supporting Don the Khan's control over tariffs. As a matter of fact, you can usually tell by the questions that they ask during a hearing, right? During a court session. And even Gorsuch and Amy and, excuse me, Roberts have come out and their questions have been very much against what this administration is arguing. Okay? So it doesn't look like they're too much in support because actually tariffs should be are controlled by Congress and not the president. And if they rule against Don the Khan, well, I mean, you know, he's put the country through all this for nothing. All right, Montgomery County in Pennsylvania, the Dems ousted every single Republican on their school board. Okay, and if you recall, their school board, there was a guy who they fired, but Republicans ended up giving him like a 700,000 severance package. Okay, and Dems tried to stop it, but they couldn't because they didn't have the majority. So all of those Republican members were ousted. Okay? Love that. Uh, let's see. Joe Kahn is the first Democrat to be elected Bucks County again, district attorney. First Democrat since the 1800s. Do you hear that? First Democrat. These snapbacks are just, oh God. Because honestly, and I'm sure the rest of you are with me. When I looked at the wins on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, I was like, oh my God, this is great, right? You know, you saw the major wins: New York, Virginia, New Jersey, and you're like, oh wow, this is great. This is way better than what we even thought and could have imagined. Okay, way better. Divine love does have that last word. Let's see. Dems now control 64 seats in Virginia's House. Oh, that's a humongous win. Uh, and it was proven during this election that many Republican voters switched to Democrat and voted Democrat. And I don't know who remembers me telling you guys, because you guys asked, well, what if Texas does gerrymander and the other states gerrymander and for the midterms and blah, blah, blah. You don't think Divine Love has a way out of that too to make things right? If that is what it's supposed to be? They can gerrymander all they want, but if Republicans who are registered Republicans still decide to vote Democrat, all the gerrymandering in the world means nothing. Zero. Nothing. If you have a majority of Republicans that switch their votes to Democrats, there's nothing that no one can do. And vice versa, right? So, that was proven during this last election. Many, and especially the largest switch actually was the Latinos. Because remember, the Latinos were the ones responsible for getting Don the Con elected. They were one of the largest voting blocks for Don the Con. Okay? That reversed itself. They went the other way. Obviously. I mean, you know, their friends, families, relatives, a lot of them got picked up, or they heard of, you know, picked up by ICE, etc. And, you know, they're no longer in support of this administration. And rightfully so. Thank goodness. But wish you had kind of realized that before the election, but oh well. Okay. The sandwich guy case was found not guilty, and good for him. And as you know, the sandwich guy threw a sandwich at ICE agents, and they actually arrested him for it and charged him with, you know, great force and this and that, and, blah, 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 and he was found not guilty. Dems flipped 29 seats in the Connecticut municipal elections. Do you realize how large that is to flip 29 seats in any election? Seriously? Think about 29 seats. Moms for Liberty candidates, all 31 of them across the country, lost. One more time. 31 Moms for Liberty, those ultra conservative, control freak MAGA moms had 31 candidates running in several different states, um, different positions in the states. Every single one of them lost. Do you realize what that says? Let's see. In New Jersey, the 25th District Assembly seat held by Republicans for 48 years went blue. So, saying all this to say, divine love always has the extreme, very last word. This is more proof of it. Um, like I said, I wasn't even aware of all this stuff until I started looking into things. Okay? You cannot get a true understanding of the power of the pulse that beats through everything if you keep putting and looking to humans and what they're doing. Yes, we have to pay attention to things. Yes, we can't bury our head in the sands, but we have to always look at the overall picture. And I'm going to give you guys a good true story of that in just a minute. But I just want to say that um, this this Tuesday night is sort of an indication of how the country's feeling now, where the country is headed, and you can best believe Republicans, they got on TV and they said, oh, these are not big things, and oh, these are nothing, and they're all blue states, this happened. No, because don't forget, Mississippi also lost their supermajority in their House because three Democrats won. They've had the supermajority in Mississippi for 13 years. They lost it Tuesday night. Okay, that's a red state. And there were other red states where we saw Dems win when they shouldn't have. I talked about some of those on election night. Those two Georgia spots, um, that was a humongous flip. Okay. But anyway, they got on TV and acted like it was no big deal. But what it is it's such a big deal that they're panicking, and now Don the Khan has kind of ordered the Senate to end the filibuster immediately, and also because he wants to jam through his no mail-in ballots and that kind of thing, orders. He wants the Senate to um, ratify that. But here's the thing: the Senate has told them no, they're not nuking the filibuster, and they're holding firm on that. And Mitch McConnell is one of the ones that's not going to go for that. Okay, because if they end the filibuster, then anything can pass with a simple majority. And you see, they know that eventually Democrats will get back into power and that they can just run through their agenda with just a simple majority. Okay. And that's something they fear always. So they're not going to do it. They cannot do it. Okay. So, um, they're on their last gasp. They're grasping. As you can see, they're desperate and they're like cornered rats. But, they're not in control. Technically, they're not in control. Observationally, they look like they're in control, but technically, they're not in control. Now, I would like to share a very personal but story that's probably going to affect everyone will be able to relate. Okay. And I'm sharing this, and my husband doesn't know I'm going to share this story, but it really directly affects him. Okay. Um, and how I'm going to explain it to you. Okay. So, our house is, we have three different yards. In the front of the house, there's a yard. The side of the house is the yard. And then we have a bigger yard in the back of the house. Okay, I hate that it's designed this way. I just wish it was all together for one big yard, but it's not. Okay, whatever. So, um, in the bigger backyard, there's a 12 by 12 shed, very big walk-in shed. My husband's got a lot of his stuff in there. And he was out mowing the front of the house, that yard. Okay. And in the back, he had the both shed doors open. And so he finishes mowing the front of the yard. Now he can't see. You can't see when you're in the front, the backyard. So he finishes mowing the yard, comes to put the lawnmower back into the shed, and realizes, oh my God, I'm missing some stuff, like a lot of stuff. So he calls me up. He's like, I'm, I, I got robbed. I'm like, what? Because I wasn't home. And he's like, I got robbed. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing. And it's like a lot of stuff. And it's a lot of expensive stuff. Okay? And so when I get home, I'm like, okay, well, let's go look on the cameras. So we look on the cameras, and sure enough, we see this guy, and he goes into the shed, but he keeps peeking out, looking to see, make sure my husband's in the front, and we've been here for decades, okay, and this has never happened ever. But anyway, so you see the guy peeking out, and then finally he walks out, and he's loaded with stuff. Okay, he's got a humongous backpack leaf blower, couple drills, all kind of stuff, right? So I'm pissed. And my husband's just like he's in total shock. Shock. So, okay, so we go to the camera. Da, 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 da. So the very first thing that I was told from my beautiful, wonderful helpers, is that the guy's coming back. So I tell my husband, I'm like, he's coming back. Oh, no, he's not coming back. I'm like, he's coming back. Trust me on that. So my husband, oh, whatever. Nah, he's not coming back. I don't think he's coming back. He's good. Sure enough, that night, same night, about 10:05, I hear this sound. Immediately, it's like someone shook me awake, and then I hear the sound, actually. And I look out the window, but I have to raise the window to see the backyard. And at first I don't see anything, but I know what I heard. And I know that I was awakened just at that moment. So I put the window down, not seeing anything, and then I saw the motion light go on. So I put the window back up, tilt my head out. Sure enough, there's the guy. He's got full mask on and bolt cutters. So my husband was still asleep. So instinctively, my voice deepened so much and was so loud and powerful. I screamed out, and I can't even say what I said because I know it would get flagged, but I cussed, and it was not pretty. Um, But I yelled out at him, and he jumps and jumps over the fence, and he's gone. By this time, my husband, of course, he wakes up, and he says, "Was that the guy?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I told you he was coming back." Damn. So we go look at the camera, and sure enough, he had the big bolt cutters, and he was trying unsuccessfully to get in. And at one of those points, I heard, that's probably the sound that I heard after they kind of shook me awake. Anyway, okay, so when I got quiet and alone, I was furious. But as I always do, I always try to take things that step above. I detach from it and look at the thing through the lens of love, literally, through the lens of love. Because that is how I have learned to process everything. I don't always do it immediately, but I always come to that spot to do it, okay? Because that is how I was taught by these loving helpers of mine and through just life to look. That's how we have to look at things eventually, okay? So the very first thing that came to me was my husband, bless his heart, and we're not going to tell him this, okay, that we're sharing this. Um, but in his early 20s, he and his first cousin were, let's just say that they borrowed a lot of things that they did not ever return. Okay? A lot of things. That's the first thing. Okay? Um, Sort of like me when I talk about in my first book, being the master thief. Okay? And you saw what happened with me. But yeah, so he was, they did some things that my husband has never paid for up until this point. That's the first thing that I saw. The second thing that came to me was my husband is extremely cavalier about just common sense stuff as far as like keeping doors open, um, which I'm always telling him about. Don't leave it open. Don't leave this open. Don't, because in the reality, you know, nowadays, unless you live in a totally isolated part of the country, you're going to get someone somewhere that's, you know, doesn't have the best intentions. And, it's tempting for people to want to steal, right? And we don't live in an isolated part of our city. So, I'm always telling him that. He's always, nah, people don't do that. They don't do that. Well, that was a humongous wake up call for him. Humongous wake up call. He totally gets it. Totally. Okay. And as for the first thing that I got, um, you know, the scales has to balance. The scales have to balance for all of us. Okay. And I would say that the amount of money that he lost, um, in this thievery, um, was on par with, what he and his cousin used to borrow and not return. Okay. So once I saw that, I, I, of course, I don't like what happened, and it makes me sort of angry. But I do understand how the universe works, and the universe basically taught him two major things in this one incident that I could never do, especially the second one. All these years I've been saying, don't be so careless. Don't be so this. You know, come on, Well, it took care of that in one incident. And as for the balancing of his karma, well, that's just what happened. His karma was somewhat balanced with this. Nothing, no action of ours, whether seemingly good or seemingly bad, okay, you know, it all balances, all of it. It must balance. That's just the nature of the universe. That is just the nature of how things work behind the scenes. Um, and now, the most interesting thing is my husband put like way better locks on this on his sheds. There's actually two of them, and so if you want to get in there now, it's like you've got to be super duper duper determined and have a lot of time to do it. And so he's extra cautious now. Interesting, right? But um, it waited many, 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 many years for this type of thing to happen, but it just seemed like the very perfect time in the perfect way um, that this happened. And amazingly, I had no fear. You know, typically, I think, because I was only, other than the incident in Italy where I was robbed, um, that wasn't like a fear type thing because it wasn't with force. But I have never really been robbed, except one other time as far as the possessions. Coming home from my eighth grade graduation, our neighbor was standing outside my house. The father with his gun. He was a police officer because our house was being robbed, and I had super duper fear after that. Um, for weeks. Um, but I had no fear during this entire time, and the message that was given to me also was that this is for him. And so even though I am affected by it, it was for him. And I just have to leave it at that. So I wanted to share that extremely personal story with you guys because there's a lot to take from that. It really is. When things happen to either ourselves or loved ones, um, it's never the universe being cruel, never the universe just picking on us, that type of thing. It is, there is always a divine balance clicking in place, uh, acting behind the scenes for the reason for things happening. Okay? So, I personally, right now, um, feel that this person may come back or has come back, but seen what's on there now and is like discouraged. But after that, I just don't feel anything more behind this incident. And my husband has learned. So I think that's the reason why we're kind of done with this. It probably won't happen again. All right. If it does, I will let you know. But the universe won't continue something if the lesson to it has been learned. It will not continue it on and on. It may come back once or twice to make sure you've gotten it, and then after that, you're moving on. So, um, I hope that helps a couple people in different ways, because it's a very real life story, very real life situation with very real life divine connotations to it, right? So, take care, everyone. I will be back on soon, and hope you enjoyed today.